What's up, nerd and nerdettes? It's time for a Superpower Shorty. This superpower is a splinter off the branch of body manipulation, so sit down and get set for brain manipulation. With the ability to think, throw bad ideas down a metaphorical sink, and have a color that looks kinda pink, users of Cerebrumkinesis have complete and utter control over the brain, the organ inside the head that controls all body functions of a human being or particular animal. This allows the individual to control the brains of oneself or others. But in addition to controlling the actual gray matter inside an organism's head, the user of this power can manipulate other aspects of the brain, which include senses, the conscious and subconscious aspect of an individual's mind, and everything the brain is connected to and controls. Due to this, they're able to perform a series of functions that have to do with controlling the brain and whatever the brain is connected to, whether they be autonomic responses, involuntary bodily functions, or voluntary bodily functions, in addition to various cognitive functions that have to do with use of the mind to solve problems or just operate in the day-to-day life. So simply put, they can just control the brain, which in turn controls the body and what the person or individual they're targeting perceives, or experiences, or even feels. Now, I could get into the origins of, I guess, the brain and its importance in history and to humans, but I think you guys want something a little bit more highbrow than that, so let's try this. Before humankind knew how important the brain was the way we do now, in fact, it's pretty fair to say that they didn't really understand it at all. Simply put, around 335 BC, Greek philosopher Aristotle thought that the brain was just simply a radiator that kept the all-important organ, the heart, from overheating. The ancient Egyptians thought it was a useless organ, and they just simply tugged it out of the dead pharaoh or mummified dignitary's head through the nose, as they didn't think it was needed in the afterlife. But as perhaps the most important organ in the body alongside the heart, the brain is responsible for most, if not all, forms of important information transfer throughout the rest of the body. In fact, it's pretty well known that the body couldn't and more than likely shouldn't be able to survive without a brain. Which is pretty ironic because while this organ is the most important, it's also the most vulnerable, which is why it's protected by the body fluids and a calcified internal shell commonly referred to as the skull. This is why the term or phrase head trauma or brain damage is so, I guess, important, as most creatures that exist can't survive massive damage to their heads. And to hit you guys with another ironic fact, although the brain is responsible for sensation or the transfer of sensation, the actual organ itself doesn't have any sensation nerves. In fact, it's 80% water, meaning when you have a headache or get hit hard in the head, the actual head, skin, skull, and nerves themselves feel the pain, not the brain. But how does the brain work? Simply put, electricity. The neurons, which are simply information messengers in said organ, take in outside stimuli, sound, tactile sensation, or visual information, aka energy, and transforms them into minute electrical signals. These electrical signals are then sent out from the brain through thousands of nerve endings connected to our nervous system and then back up to the brain, which then releases hormones or chemicals, which in turn registers whatever sensation we're feeling as pleasure, pain, or anything in between. So going back to the previous point, the transfer of electrical signals are so important to the function of our brain that any disruption can cause a myriad of symptoms ranging from mental illness all the way to mental deficiencies. Fun fact, the adult human brain runs continuously, whether awake or sleeping, on about 12 watts of power. For comparison, a typical desktop draws around 175 watts of power, and a laptop is somewhere around 60 watts. And continuing with these fun facts, speaking in terms of survivability or durability, the brain can survive up to 6 minutes without oxygen, and consciousness is believed to have been lost around a minute after death, but that can be subjective too, depending on the person and the situation and whatnot. But you guys want to know what isn't subjective? How awesome and powerful this ability is in regards to dealing with most organic beings. I'm not one for bragging, but this is a power I would definitely choose to live out my weirdest superpower fantasies. But since it doesn't exist in our world, the best thing we can do is imagine. I imagine all the time. It reminds me of that time that I asked you guys to hit that like and subscribe button because it'll definitely help the channel out. And the more powers that I get out to you guys, the faster you'll be able to receive them. What, I didn't? Oh, I could have sworn I did. Well, do your boy a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. But anyway, moving on. On the more fantastical or esoteric side of things, the brain has been loosely linked with the soul in the Middle Ages. And or maybe more obviously, the mental state and personality of an individual. And while the latter was found out to be true thanks to our modern technology, various other myths arose around the prior unfounded assumption. Common misconceptions are that humans only use about 10% of our brain, which is obviously not true, as different regions of the brain perform different tasks. This has led to other misconceptions such as the right brain person or someone who uses the right side of their brain, generally speaking, is more creative, intuitive, and artsy, where a left brain person is the inverse, more linear, problem-solving, sure, and logical, which again is not true. And here's another thing some of you guys might be happy or I guess sad to hear. But the rumors of those with bigger heads being smarter? Yeah, sorry to say that's not true. And here's one that's really gonna crush you guys. But musical preference has no relation to actual intelligence. But all those previously mentioned misguided concepts or rumors do make for good fiction. The one thing we do understand about the brain, besides the factual stuff I told you before, is that it's so complex we still haven't completely mapped or begun to understand what it can really do. That's where superpowers come in. So getting back into this concept as a superpower, this bodily power is the main cause for numerous others in the most metatextual sense you can think of. Because in numerous mediums that exist and numerous mediums that will exist, the mysterious organ that is the brain is usually the cause of people within these particular mediums getting certain powers. And obviously the list of powers are too long to state here. We can still look at the stereotypical mold of powers that come from the brain or from manipulating the brain. A main stereotype of this ability is that users with a enhanced brain are normally portrayed to be highly intelligent. Duh, that's like the main purview of this ability. So expect a brainiac type character. Check out my video on enhanced intelligence. The link is in the description. But it's also common to find users of this power that don't fit the stereotypical genius archetype. Instead, they're usually tapping into the brain's pure potential via mind over matter. This either gives the user total control over their physical being, which then dabbles into Charles Atlas superpower territory, or they can even give you soul or psychic-based powers. As in most medium, the brain is the direct cause of most psychic phenomena, aka ESP, or extrasensory perception for those who aren't as nerdily inclined. Expect a video on that soon. Another archetype that users of this ability fall into are the highly evolved racial being. These characters are usually several millennia ahead of their respective group in terms of their mentality. So with that being said, users of this ability have stats that range just like its parent superpower, body manipulation, due to the different factors. So if you want more information, look there. And following that same theme, with a wide range of stats, when it comes to physical appearance or stereotypical appearance, they can really look any which way. But it's common for a user of this ability to have an enormous head cavity or possess an enormous brain themselves. Sometimes the brain might be visible, which is usually used to induce fear or discomfort via body horror logic, because it's separated from the body in a jar or something else. And as such, these types of characters are viewed as outcasts or exceptionally evil, and they fit into categories ranging from the typical brain monster to a natural way to punish someone, which can then lead to a fate worse than death. So because of how important this concept is as a power, it's usually an implied taboo to do anything to desecrate the brain, because we aren't supposed to see it. So anyone, thing, or being that does anything from smashing, savaging, exposing, devouring, experimenting, or torturing a brain is automatically given a massive evil alignment shift. Now, with the power to manipulate brains comes the natural ability to possess access to more than 100% of their mental capacity, which can then grant extended knowledge and mental usage as well as enhanced mental durability in order to output and receive more than one mind's worth of energy and/or information via enhanced brain capacity. That seemingly simple application allows you to access many other powers that involve the brain of either yourself or others. And the perfect way to do that is by detecting and then analyzing the brain or brainwaves of others via brain scanning. Okay, so now you're perceiving and scanning brains like a computer. That's pretty cool. The next step from that is controlling the electrical impulse given off by various mental processes via brainwave manipulation. And since we're controlling brainwaves, a direct correlation of doing that is controlling the various personality traits of an individual. If you control the range of actions and mannerisms made by an individual in response to a particular environment, then it sounds like you're tapping into behavior manipulation. If the user can control the feelings, moods, and the effects this application can have on themselves, people, or animals, or any other type of creature that has a brain, then you have the ability of emotion manipulation. If the user has complete control over the senses of oneself and others, then they would be able to control the faculties of sight, smell, hearing, touch, taste, balance, pain, etc. with sense manipulation. And obviously, the previous application counts as a form of enhanced senses, as they're taking in way more information than would be readily available. Users at the next level are able to increase the strength of their own thinking organ or the brains belonging to others. This allows them to enhance the capability to use the already pre-existing mental capabilities they have to their maximum effect with brain augmentation. But let's dive deeper into the brain, because we all know that the brain runs on bioelectrical pulses. Well, at least you should. So if you increase the brain's effectiveness, then the same would happen to the energy that it runs on, granting you the ability to detect and then control these signals way easier with electrical signal manipulation. This would then allow you to finally control the organic pathways that these thought-based electrical currents travel through, using neural impulse manipulation. And as a result, you can actually forcefully control the body of your target instead of controlling through messing with perception via motor skill manipulation. From there, it's not a stretch to say that those that can control brains can manipulate the target's capacity for knowledge, which can make them smarter or, less smart with intelligence manipulation. And in direct correlation, or some sort of causation, most forms of intelligence are classified as learned or memorized knowledge. So if you can view and control what the person remembers, then you can use memory manipulation through the exclusive use of the brain. From there, the user would then be able to use these signals, the same electrical ones, to activate chemicals within the body in order to activate said body, because that's what it does in real life. If the user wants to alter cellular metabolism, aka how an organism physically looks, by, stimulating an aspect or inhibiting others, then you have a user of hormone manipulation. A more specific use of the previous application can have a user get the body to release chemicals that only affect things like pain, stress, or fatigue via endorphin activation. Through the use of the previously mentioned application, it is completely within the realm of possibilities to use hormones or electrical signals to cease mental activity and as a result shut off the mind of an individual via brain stopping. Or they can use the electrical signals and jumpstart the mind back into consciousness with brain restarting. Higher tier users of this ability can generate their own source of, brains with brain creation. The user can liquefy the brain of any target they choose on a metaphorical mental level, which would cause the target to stop thinking. Or they can do the same thing, but on a physical level, which would turn the brain into a liquid or kind of mush material via brain soup. And since it's already got the metaphorical or physical consistency of a liquid, this would affect mental-based aspects, as anything cerebral such as thoughts, feelings, sensations, or consciousness would just slip out the user's brain as well. With brain drain. This can double as a form of brain removal as well, because if the brain is drained, scraped, or pulled out, the intended effect is still the same. The methods just vary in that instance. Or they can just take in outside sources of brains in whatever manner they see fit, especially removing them from where they once were, which is definitely a bad idea because brains are supposed to stay where they're spawned, via brain absorption. Or a user can eliminate the brain of any organism, inducing either permanent brain damage via some kind of mind wipe, or they can induce a mental break, or just straight up kill the individual entirely by destroying their brain with brain destruction. Meanwhile, top tier users, or the best users that this ability seems to offer, which is still a lot, can use that brain they absorbed or their own form of energy or symbolic power to enhance what their brain can already do beyond its natural limits or biases, even adding a new power set unrelated to brains if needed, via brain empowerment. Well, now that you have an extra beefy brain, you can actually use it. No, like, I'm serious. Use the most vulnerable part of your body to attack with, defend with, or increase your mental capabilities to unheard levels with self-brain manipulation. They can also use their own brain anatomy, the brain stem, nervous system, etc., and elongate it, stretching it outward to hold and manipulate objects like a limb with prehensile brain. Otherwise, they could just shift the body into the brain or transform your body or an outside organic body into gray matter. In some cases, this can take the form of a living brain creature that exists as its own organism with brain mimicry. And since you can do that, you guys know that you can kiss headshots or head damage of any form goodbye. Because with brain regeneration, not only can you do the nearly impossible feat of growing back any part of the gray matter, brain cells, and neurons that were lost, you'd be all but impossible to put down. And there you have it, brain manipulation in a nutshell. Now, are these all the applications and associations? Of course not. These are just power-specific abilities, very narrowed and on theme, if you will. If you want more uses and applications for this power, then check out its parent powers, body manipulation, or similar-ish powers, in theme like enhanced intelligence. Other than that, brains are just organs and they aren't super durable. So if you don't have some of the previously mentioned applications, then most forms of head trauma can cripple the complex uses for this power, or just cripple you altogether. Supercharged forms of energy such as electricity or anything relating to that are natural weaknesses of this power because they interfere with the natural electrical signals in the brain, which allows us to think and feel pain and whatnot. And of course, the actual brain organ itself doesn't feel pain, so if something's affecting it, you won't know until it's too late more often than not. And lastly, the user's own strength, natural talents, and skills will determine how far you go with a power like this. So protect your head, remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.